Good morning, everybody, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your breakfast bankroll for Friday, February 18th, 2022. Just 10 days left in this quick month as we get closer to March 1st. Conference championships, March Madness, God willing, the start of MLB at the end of this month, end of March, excuse me. Um, then we'll be talking Masters. Holy moly. Masters in the middle of April. That is the top of my bucket list. Every year I get that friendly email that says fill out your request for tickets every day, and we will tell you 4 months later that unfortunately you weren't selected. And then you can go on to the market and pay through the nose. And I will get there. I will get there sooner than later. No NBA today. All-Star week end. Scotty and I were talking about the under-over and the spread on that game. I mean, we talked about the football All-Star game with the basically flag football. And this is even worse. I mean, this is half court off the backboard through the legs and dunks. I mean, I can guarantee you this. I won't watch 1 second of it. But anyways, we do have college hoops. We do have NHL. And I'm just going to say this before I bring Scotty on. Anyone that's doing this seriously for a second string of income professionally, that this is not entertainment and understands the grind and the marathon approach. Each day is a new day, okay? Each week is a new week. But what you have to realize is you got to stick to your gut and what's working. Stick with it. A perfect example for myself last night in the ECSI VIP people, and I'll take full blame here. We're 3-0 this week in the NHL. And there were two games that really stuck out. And I talked about this on the bankroll. I talked about this on the closing bell. I couldn't get over the Vancouver game. There was a pick 'em, and then they were getting pressed to minus 115. Yeah, they won in overtime in a shootout. Okay. But you dig deeper, peeling the layer back. They won earlier in December at San Jose. Prior to that, they were 1-11-1 versus San Jose. So think about that. 1-11-1, open to pick them, and the money was coming in on the Canucks, and I leave that on the desk. Second thing, I've been talking about Edmonton since they fired their coach. They're 3-0. I couldn't release the minus 230. That was the overnight. I'm not releasing the minus 200 either. So you either play Edmonton in regulation or you take the plus money on them on the puck line. They won 7-3. But instead, I released 3 basketball games, college. We win one in OT. We lose one, which we were up 10 at halftime and didn't score for 5 minutes late and didn't close. We should have won that game. And then we had a total that both teams played grab ass and it falls like 5 points short. So the moral of this sermon and story is stick to your gut. Stick what's going and cash in and what's going well that week. Okay, I know there's more college hoop games. I know we do as much work on college hoop as we do in NHL and NBA, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're 3-0 in the NHL and you got 2 games, play them. And I'm yelling at myself. I'm not yelling at you guys watching and listening here. I'm yelling at myself. I left 2 winners on the game, on the board, on the desk. 1 at plus money. Stick to it. Let's bring in my co-host, the partner in crime, the one and only Mr. Scott E. Webb. Morning, Scott.
Morning, Jeff. Sounds like you had an interesting night.
Yeah, the square peg into the round hole. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. Now we've caught stride in college hoops. Don't get me wrong, but the fact that we're 3-0 in hockey this week, the fact that I keep talking about this Edmonton team and the NHL especially, you fire the coach, the team tends to get hot. And I can't release a 230. I can't release a 200. But I can take that team in regulation at even money. I can take them minus the goal and a half. The under over was 6.5. They scored 10 total goals.
Same by himself.
Yeah. And the Vancouver game, again, if you're 111-1 against the team and you open as a pick'em and you're now favored, you got to scratch your head here and say, okay. And again, when you get to hockey, when you get to overtime, when you get to shootouts, it's a coin flip. It doesn't matter. But of course, it's on the desk, and of course, they won.
Well, I think that's a common thing. And I think what happens is we go through these things and we start doing stuff and we get our situations organized and then we just go. And I get all that. And I tend to do things, and some of the things I talk about on our Webby Wisdom stuff, is formulated and ideaed to keep you consistent in what your frame of mind is. I get lost occasionally in baseball, right? So I'll go through and there's 15 games, and let's just say there's 10 to 12 games you got to handicap every day. And I'm looking at the same shit every day. I'm looking at the pitchers. I'm looking at the batters. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at that. But I'll get to the end and I'll go, well, I want to bet this game because of this reason. And then I sit here and think to myself, well, that's not a reason that you've been betting for. Why are you going to do that now? So I catch myself in some of those things. But the only way I catch myself is to have a process of how you do it. And I usually use a few steps in there that basically says, this is what I like. And then this is why I like it. And then I formulate an opinion. And then I try to figure out, okay, well, what are my strongest opinions? And then I want to play my strongest opinions, and I leave the others on the table. But I got to find a way, like you always call it the strainer, to sift through those things. And I think the best way to do that is to organize your thoughts, but they got to be organized the same way every day. They got to be consistent every day. And if you're losing, that's when you allow and you change your thought process a little bit to go, okay, well, what's been working, and look at what's been winning, and then kind of figure out, okay, like in the NBA, the damn favorites are just killing everything. So okay, so you don't want to play that many underdogs. All right, so when you're looking at them, you got to look at what favorites are going to cover today, and then figure out how to manage and manipulate some of those kinds of different thoughts as you're going through, because there's so many things and reasons why you bet on games. And then you and I have been around long enough that we sit here and go, well, I can give you 30,000 reasons to bet on a game, but all it takes is one reason for me not to, and I won't. And that's the way we do it, because of that thing we talked about too, which was that little thing that goes off in your belly that says, this is the wrong thing, that intuition that you get. And that runs you off these games. And, in baseball, I get that a lot, but I try to fight it because I've been doing this now long enough where I've learned to trust my numbers, and I trust them a lot, and I'll trust them over my inkling, and I'll run them, and then I'll go, you dumb shit, you thought about that when you were doing this, and a little buzzer went off in your brain and said, no, you can't do that, but I did it anyway. So there's some give and take there, and I get it. I get that way. I get all frustrated and mad at myself about stuff, and there's not a whole lot you can do except get it out of your system, start yelling in the world, and then be all good and be ready to go the next day. So when you're starting to look at stuff, it's a clean mind and a clean frame of mind as you're looking at them.
I talked at length to anyone that wanted to listen yesterday about the Arizona State and Oregon game. I was telling everyone, there's two Jekyll and Hyde teams there. You just don't know. This Arizona State team, 15-point favorites, lose outright by 10. They're 15-point dogs, win outright. Bobby Hurley is dead man walking. Everyone in the world is waiting for Oregon to kick it into overdrive like they always do this time of year. Vegas knows that. They were 5-point favorites yesterday at Arizona State. Nowhere to be found. Nowhere to be found. And you talk about cleansing your mind. I got a bottle of ammonia that when my mind gets like that, I open up and take a big sniff just to clear the membranes, because you can't carry that over the next day. And I say that every day. Every day is a new day. We have 24 hours to make a difference. And what happened last night is history. What happens tomorrow's a mystery. What you do in the present and today, that's all that counts. And the problem with today's society is we worry about yesterday. We worry about tomorrow, and we forget about today. You lose today. So we were 1-2 yesterday. We're 6-5-1 this week. Now, realistically, honestly, should be about 7-3-1 if I just played the 2 hockey games last night. Yeah, I'm beating myself up because the strainer, the Jedi mind tricks, and the blah, 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 blah that's going around social media, my colleagues, the guys in Vegas, and everyone else played a role into yesterday's card.
Yeah. It's just a mess sometimes. And sorting through the mess is important. But what's bigger in that is that I like to, I use poker analogies a lot. And, in these lanes, we have a day because, you and I aren't going to go and say, okay, I'm losing this game, guys, so let's go bet this one. We don't do that. Now other people might, but that's not a strategy that's successful. So we don't do those things. But that being said, our next day is important in these lanes. Now, if you're playing poker and you do the same stuff, because you do that stuff in poker. I mean, you try to bluff, or you try to do this, or you try to do that, and you just make a bad play too every once in a while, and stuff just doesn't work out. But the very next deal you get, you got to be ready for, because you don't know what you're going to get. You might get a 2-7, or you might get pocket rockets or something. So you got to clear your brain and clear your mind of things. And the past in this business is the past. Now, that doesn't mean you don't study what you did to understand why you did it, so that you don't make that same mistake over and over and over, because that's just dumb. But it does mean that when you're doing these things, that whatever is in your brain can only be about what you're doing in that moment. Because if you're not doing it in that moment, it doesn't matter. And that's where the big thing is here, is that a lot of times these games that you win or these games that you lose, and I'll just say it this way. How many times have you gone in to a night and you've won and you've had a great night, and then the next morning you're handicapping these games, or that night you're handicapping these games, whenever you do them, you're in euphoria and you're doing a great job, and holy shit, the board is clear as can be. It's because your mind is perfect. It's where it needs to be. And when you're losing, you're sitting there going, holy shit, this is what I see, but I don't trust what I see because I'm losing. Your confidence level's down. That happens to everybody. And the truth of the matter is, none of that matters. It's how you just adjust your brain. And I like what you did. I mean, if you get it out of your system, a lot of times it's said, done, gone. It's gone, and it's not there anymore. And then you can focus and concentrate on what you really need to do. Just like in poker, you gotta get rid of your hand, because, okay, well, the next hand's the next hand, and I gotta be ready for it. And how many are you going to sit there for? So it just depends on how you look at it. And I guess I've always looked at it like, just because you have one thing happen doesn't mean another thing has to happen as a result of what you just did, especially if it's bad.
No, and you bring up poker. Poker is a great analogy because you talk about the tilt factor. How many times, I watch a lot of live poker on Twitch. I have Poker Go. I go to the World Series of Poker. I live, eat, breathe poker because it helps my brain, my mentality, in these lanes. And
Mhm.
so you use the word tilt where you had the pocket aces and they get cracked, and then next hand you're sitting there with they'll always follow you up with the old ace queen or something stupid, and you're already on tilt, and you get involved in a hand after the flop, and you know you shouldn't be there, and you get sticky, and next thing you go from chip leader to out, out on the rail. Same thing happens in our lanes, heaters, coolers. When you're running great, you're catching every break. um, it's puppies, cupcakes, and unicorns. When you're struggling and you're trying to force the issue, that's when our over yesterday, Scott, that came up a couple points short. They were 6 for 33 from three, and they missed a combined 11 free throws. Okay. So, I mean, if I hit two more threes and you hit two free throws, it's stupidity like that. The other game we lost in college hoop, up 10 at halftime, up 8 with 5 to go. They don't score for 4 minutes and they win the game by one. And that's the mentality. And the funny thing is, we're still up a unit for the week. Well, with Juice, we're up a half unit. There are guys on social media that woke up this morning in these lanes, the so-called experts, the so-called people with blue check marks, that are down 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 units.
Yeah, it's it's a responsibility that a lot of people just want to get up here and spout stuff off. Um, you know, our following is gaining and getting better and better. But if I had the following that those guys have, I assure you that I wouldn't be any different. In a sense of the responsibility we have of what we say is important, because whoever it is that follows us and listens to us, it's their hard-earned dollars a lot of times that they're putting on the line because of what we say, and I get that, and I'm not going to risk their money if I wouldn't risk my own. So I'm playing what I play, and this is what I play, and hopefully people follow along, and hopefully I'm having a good season, or hopefully I'm having a good particular season, if I'm having a good NBA season, or if I'm having a good football or whatever. It kind of works that way. But yes, yesterday for me, I went 1-1 in the NBA, and looking back at it, I had the Miami Charlotte game under the number. It was 225.5, and it got all bet up to 227. I think that game went into double overtime, Jeff, and they still didn't make the number. So it's amazing sometimes. And then you sit there and you go, man, I was really right about that game. And then all of a sudden you go, well, I was also on New Orleans, and they were plus 2.5, and they got beat by I think 7, and they weren't really in the game against Dallas the whole time. So you sit there and you go, well, how in the hell does that happen? How do you get to a point where you got one game pegged perfect and the other game doesn't come out quite right? Well, that just happens. So I was 1-1 yesterday in the NBA. Feel pretty good. I think for the week I like 5-4 or something. Nothing great, but it is what it is.
Short college board, meaning not a lot of headliner games. Getting ready, obviously, for tomorrow. There'll be a big slate, and just quickly looking at this board. Your 5 o'clock tip off, which you'll get a lot of money on, is Butler's and St. John's, a Big East game, rotation number 865, 866. The Johnnies open up 9-point favorites, currently 8-point favorites. I'm showing 89% of the bets, 84% of the money, all coming in on Butler. Butler right now 13-3, 13-13. St. John's 14-11. So initially when you think of the wins and losses, the Johnnies at a 9-point favorite. Vegas is looking for some Butler money, and they're getting it. And again, I got nothing big to whistle at that one right now, Scotty.
Yeah, obviously it's early, so these numbers are going to change. But $13,000 bet on that game so far, which is 13. There's a 14, and there's a 18. So it's up there. It's a really popular game. 85% of the money, 78% of the tickets showing on Butler.
Yeah, it's a big number for a reason. I'm not trying to steer anyone either which way here. An under over of
There's
one.
one that's a surprise though that I guarantee you won't get when it comes up to how much money's on it.
Well, I mean the headliner game actually tonight would be Maryland and Nebraska at 9 o'clock.
That's the number one bet game. But how about rotation 871, 872?
Ryder and Monmouth. Monmouth opened at 8.5. It's down to 6.5, or 7 at DraftKings. I'm showing 50% of the bets, 91% of the money, all in on Monmouth. Yet the lines dropped 2.5 points.
$14,000, Jeff. This is the number 2 bet game of the morning so far, and 98% of the money, 65% of the tickets on Monmouth, and it's going the other way.
The old Jedi mind tricks. St. Pete's at Fairfield, rotation number 877, 878. St. Peter's team that's been playing well, 11-10 versus a 12-14. Opened at a pick. I'm showing 70% of the bets, 96% of the money on St. Pete.
I am showing no bets at all. I got 2 blank boxes here.
Rotation number 875, 876, Princeton at Brown. Princeton right now, 17-5, Brown 12-13. Princeton opened at 1, now 2. Brown's been good to us. Brown has been very good to us. I'm going to do a lot of my due diligence and figure out if Brown will be the play. I wouldn't play Princeton, obviously. What do you have any bets on that one yet?
Yeah, $2,600, 67% of the money, 84% of the tickets on Princeton. But let me just ask you this. When it's this early in the morning, I mean, it's 11 o'clock in the morning, so it's not the earliest of earlies, but you think this money that's coming in is more sharp money in the morning, or do you think it's more, just people kind of hanging out and this is my team and I'm going to play them?
No, that's the overnight money from the night before. So the numbers get released. The sharps get in there. So any monies that you're seeing is initial, especially this early in the morning, is the guys from the overnight that have access to those numbers. So the rotation number 881, 882, Ohio at Kent. Ohio having a hell of a year, 22-4. Kent State 16-9. This Ohio team has been destroying teams by 20, 25, and 30. Yet Kent opens up -1.
Yeah, $3,700, 64% of the money, 58% of the tickets on Ohio.
Yeah, keep an eye on Kent State tonight. We will be having later today at 2:00 my time. We're heading back to the Windy City for Riley Magnuson. We'll be talking Big Ten. We'll be talking college hoops. And then at 4:30, myself and Scott will be back. So I'll be really eyeing that game. I'll be eyeing the Brown game. And we'll talk about the twerps tonight. Actually, we'll go to our rotation number 883, 884 first. And a good game. Richmond at Virginia at VCU. VCU opened up at 2, still at 2. 60% of the bets, 67% of the money in on Richmond. 17-9 Richmond versus a 17-7 VCU team.
Yeah, $4,200 bet so far. 51% of the money is on Richmond. 56% of the tickets on VCU.
Okay, so we have a line freeze on VCU, and both tickets and money that will create that right now. So we'll see what that one brings. 9 o'clock. 895, 896. The Maryland Twerps head to Nebraska. 2 bad teams right now. Let me see what their records are. And this game, again, will be the most heavily bet game today. Maryland 11-14 versus a Nebraska team 7-18. Maryland opens up at 1.5, now 2 at Westgate, South Point, and Caesars. 75% of the bets, 52% of the money on Maryland.
Yeah, $19,000 bet on the game so far, and 95% of the money, 79% of the tickets on Maryland.
And they will be heavily bet today. And let me just tell you guys, every time you put this team in this spot, they're nowhere to be found. So just tread lightly there. Tread lightly. All right, I'm going to go to hockey because it's a short board there. But again, one game sticks out like a sore thumb. And I'm going to tell you to buy it now for anyone that's listening. Rotation number 57-58, Florida travels to Minnesota. Minnesota overnight opens up -110. Florida right now -128 at Circa, 123 at Westgate. Get on the horns right now. Take the Panthers. Take them on the money line. If you're at Circa, you're getting them at 128. If you travel a little further to Westgate, John Murray and the crew have them at -123. The flips have been rolling, guys. The flips have been rolling.
Yeah, this one shows $11,000 bet on the game so far, 86% of the cash and 68% of the tickets on Florida.
Yeah, jump on Florida right now. If I think it's going to keep going up, but these flips have been cashing in very, very well. The rest of the board, nothing to really write home about. Dallas opens up at -140 at Chicago, now 154. The Kings travel to Vegas. Vegas coming off the 2-0 loss 2 nights ago to the Avs. We did have the Avs there. Vegas opens up -165, now -154 at Circa. So they get some Kings money overnight, 165 and 170 everywhere else. Again, I wouldn't release a Vegas that high. I would look at regulation, and I would look at the puck line before I would dive into that. So again, short board, not a lot initially to talk about. Me and Scott will be back at 4:30 to go over any movements, anything we see, hopefully some more MLB talk or anything. Scott, anything to close?
Well, I think we beat up what we said enough this morning on the other stuff, and I just did some more baseball stuff. I didn't put it out on the website. I'm going to save it for the book just because it's studies on the batters. But one thing that caught me off guard and I wasn't really, and I guess shame on me, I just didn't get to a point where I thought about it in a sense of Teoscar Hernandez. Now, Teoscar Hernandez plays for the Toronto Blue Jays. But I didn't realize that Teoscar Hernandez led their team in RBIs. And I didn't realize that he's basically a top 20 player in Major League Baseball last year. Nobody talks about the guy. And they talk about Bo Bichette, and they talk about, Vladimir Guerrero. And that just hit home in a sense of, that team's pretty damn deep in terms of what they do and what kind of hitters they have. Now, pitching's a different story, but what kind of hitters they have and so forth. So I'm just looking around and getting ready for some stuff. I pulled up this morning. I'm looking at, I got them right here. Let me pull them up. I've got starting pitchers, and these are pitchers based off of their Vegas numbers. And Vegas numbers, what I mean by is they either won money or they lost money every time they start. And it's interesting to see. Like I listed it first of all by games started. So Charlie Morton and Walker Buehler, right? So Charlie Morton started 37 games. If you bet every single one of his games, you would have lost $460. So that's how tough baseball is, guys. I mean, baseball is a different animal. Walker Buehler started 37 games, and if you would have bet on him, you lost $95. If you bet on Luis Castillo, for example, he had 33 starts. He's down. You would have lost $1,254. Now, that in theory, you can almost call those units. because those are $100, increments, so to speak. But these are interesting times, interesting things. And, we wouldn't have bet on Jake Arrieta every day. Jake Arrieta, he lost $1,179.
I can tell you this: we did catch about a 3 or 4 game stretch where he wasn't getting out of the first or second inning, and they got real annoyed of that real quick.
Yeah, there's just lots of different things in baseball that you got to keep track of. But I always think it's kind of fun to look at these guys in terms of dollars, because the general person who comes into these lanes and goes, all you got to do is pick the winner. That's all you got to do. You just got to pick the winner. Okay, well, it's kind of like this. Are you going to pay minus 300 for these guys? You're going to pay minus 200 for these guys? Oh, yeah, we're going to do that because they're going to win. Okay, well, Garrett Cole, minus $600 last year. So, these guys win, and they're great pitchers. But because they are great pitchers, they have these big expectations, and the lines are huge. So you're way better off finding let me find the other page, the money's won page instead of the money's lost page. So Chris Flexen, I don't even know if people know who he is. Chris Flexen pitched last year in the KBO. He pitched in a KBO World Series and was the KBO World Series MVP, by the way. And then the Seattle Mariners signed him. He used to be a Met a long time ago, and he's not a big hard throwing guy, but he made 31 starts after pitching in the KBO in the same year. And now, right back-to-back years, put it that way. Plus $1,591 if you bet him every start. Logan Webb plus $1,193. Tyler Alexander is a Tiger, I think, and $1,188. Chris Bubik. Nobody knows who Chris Bubik is. He's a pitcher for the Royals. His record was not very good, but at the same time, his record's not very good. He made 20 starts plus $1,065 if you bet on him every time. So you can find these guys. You can do it. And a guy like Matt Moore, Jeff, who has a losing record. He has a losing record, but because he's also plus 200 when he goes out and wins, overcompensates for when he loses at that same plus 200 number. And Matt Moore was plus $892 if you bet on him every game last year. It's just weird how baseball works.
You talked about Cole and Buehler, and Buehler had an amazing year. And the fact of the matter that you're losing that kind of money with him, because at home he's minus 300. Okay. Yeah. And you can't play a minus 300. If you go to the window and play a minus 300, 400, there was a couple games last year that got to minus 500. Okay. And when you think about it this way, it's just a 9-inning baseball game. Listen, this pitcher could have a no-hitter through 7, 120 pitches, and they got to pull him because of the pitch count. And then the bullpen comes in and blows it. There's too many variables to be laying numbers like that. The Coles of the world, again, minus 200 every time he pitches at home. I mean, I probably, off the top of my head, going back to Buehler, I mean, if he was a dog, it would have been minus, plus 105, maybe once or twice. I mean, the Dodgers are never dogs. I think actually they were finally a dog one game last year, and it broke their streak of 100 and whatever straight games. So like you said, you're just picking a winner, and in baseball, it's the one sport that there are so many variables that you don't know. That's why for us, we got on a nice little stretch there when you got beat up enough in the back end, and you play in the full games, and if it's the bullpen, extra innings or whatever it is, and you keep losing, we talked about, well, when you're doing your basic analysis, you're doing it on the 2 starting pitchers. I'm not going to lay the 220, the 230, okay, but if you go into the first 5 and you lay the half of a run, and you're getting even money, minus 110, 120, or sometimes plus money. As long as it's not tied, as long as your team's winning, and most likely you're hoping your starting pitcher got you those 5 minutes that you were expected, kind of evens the playing field a little, Scott.
Yeah. So here's a Here's another question that I have for you. And I'm going to try to write about it and see if I can figure this out. So, you talk about baseball teams and you can look at their over unders, right? So for example, they're probably a bad example, but the Atlanta Braves, 75 over, 78 under. So it's not really a good example of being able to turn things around. But a team like let's see, like the Dodgers, they score lots of runs. You think they're going to have lots of overs? 71 overs, 81 unders. A team like the Arizona Diamondbacks, they don't score worth a shit. 89 overs, 66 unders. So here's my question. Is team total over unders a pitching stat or a batting stat? What should we be looking at? Because in my opinion, I think it's a pitching stat.
I think it's a double-edged sword because let's bring up Arizona. When the Dodgers come into Arizona, think of some teams with some big offenses come into Arizona, their back end was not good. And their starting staff couldn't give you any length. So the team total for a Dodgers game probably was 4.5, 5. And that's the hardest thing in baseball for me is I want to get into a game. Dodgers, Buehler at Arizona, Baumgartner. Bueller's minus 185. I can't get in there. The under over is 8.5. I can't get in there. But the Dodger team total is 4.5 juice over minus 138. Well, in my mind, they're telling me the Dodgers got a good shot to get to 5. That's the magic number. Okay. But when you got those lopsided matchups, Scott, the team totals of 5, 5.5, you need a touchdown. Sometimes you need a touchdown and an extra point. So it's amazing how many layers you can peel back in a baseball game and finally get into a game. And there, you got the full game. You got the first 5. You got the under over. You got team totals, but most of the people don't want to do that much work and research.
Well, what if we broke it down and said most of these, and if we could look at these teams that went over the number mostly, or the teams that went under the number mostly, and related it to the bullpen strength?
I think bullpen and starting pitching. So pull up the numbers for the Tigers.
For the Tigers?
Yeah.
The Detroit.
No offense, no starting pitching, and no back end.
Detroit Tigers, 67 unders, 89 overs. I'm sorry, 67 overs, 89 unders. So lots of unders.
Which doesn't make sense. It's almost what you think would be the exact opposite.
Detroit starting pitchers finished 23rd in Major League. I'm sorry. Let's look at this differently. The Detroit starting pitchers finished 20th in Major League Baseball. Texas was the worst. And then in terms of relievers, the Detroit Tigers relievers were 23rd. So, and their offense was, I would have to look it up, but in terms of pitching, they're back half, back third. They're not great, obviously. But you would think the Texas Rangers are going to have lots of overs. 79 overs, 74 unders.
Okay, so those numbers are skewed because Vegas knows that we're expecting a lot of overs.
Sure.
So a Ranger game, 8.5, 9.5. So you're not getting. There was you got a Mets Dodgers game, DeGrom versus Buehler. The under and over is going to be 6.
Or 5.5, maybe.
5.5. 5.5, exactly.
Yeah, what about like a team like the Angels? 88 overs, 72 unders. That's a team that can't pitch very well. And to be honest, they didn't score that many runs either. They have offense. They just didn't play.
I'll give you the team to look up flashes of starting pitching, anemic offense, back end average at best.
Who, the
Miami
Marlins?
Marlins.
Yeah. 70 overs, 81 unders.
I can't wait for your write up on Alcantara. I think he's the next coming. I do. I'm not going to compare him to Jose Fernandez, obviously. May he rest in peace. But
well, he comes up, if you bet on him on his 33 starts last year, minus 579.
They are the most frustrating team to bet on. They would get the bases loaded, no outs, and wouldn't score. They would get second and third no outs and wouldn't score. And that's the tough thing about baseball is when you're getting guys on base and you're just not getting that hit to get them across. And it's just moving the train, and so frustrating. That team.
I think it's worth looking into a little bit just to see what really matters to this, because if you could figure it out in a sense of, and I get it, all these teams have different numbers and different things, but I tend to believe that when you start to look at this, the Tampa Bay Rays, right? The Tampa Bay Rays on this thing, I got to go back to where it is now. Oops, wrong one. The Rays are 83 overs and 70 unders. And you think about the Rays and you think about, God, they pitch. So why do they got all of that? Well, I think it's because, they actually scored a little more than what people think they did, and they still pitched. But they play in the American League East too, like Boston, right? Boston, 74 overs, 85 unders. Would you have said they had that many unders?
No, I really think the unders. It's again a Boston Friday night, middle of the summer home game. The under over is 10 and a half.
Yeah. Well, their home number is 40 overs, 39 unders. Away was 35 overs, 42 unders.
I wonder what the correlation is, based upon. Here you go, Scott. Projected offensive stats broken down, divided by 9, right? So what would the Boston Red Sox average team total be? I bet you'd be about 4.5 versus defensively and pitching. They're probably 4.25 a game. That's what they would average giving up on a daily basis, and they'd average about 4.5 runs a game.
So they are. I don't have that yet. I've got a projected win total and percentage for the Red Sox, but I don't have a projected numbers, and I don't think it's fair to really put them in there yet when their teams aren't complete. So I think that's why they're left empty, because these are obviously going to change a lot. But you can come up with a number that says these are runs for, these are runs against, projected per game, and then they extrapolate that out to 162, and that's sort of how they come up with some of these numbers, because they're all based on runs scored, runs saved, or runs allowed, not necessarily anything more than that. But it's just interesting, I think, how some of this breaks out. One of the things that surprised me when I looked at that was, the Minnesota Twins are 87 overs and 67 unders. Okay, great. We know they have decent offense, and we know they can't pitch worth a shit. So yes, we get that. But you would think that at home they would score a lot of runs. Well, it's 39 overs, 39 unders at home. They are 48 and 28, 48 overs and 28 unders on the road. That's a huge difference.
And when I'm playing, I talk about odds. Okay, well, let's go back to Bueller or Cole for a second. We're not going to play a minus 300 at home. So what does the public and the DGen do? Well, they take the run line, right? I'm going to take Cole or Bueller minus a run and a half, minus 125. At least I get into the game. I got action on the game. Well, they don't realize that you just cut the odds. In other words, you're not guaranteed 27 outs. You're guaranteed 24 outs. So with that said, now, unless if the Yankees bat in the ninth, and this is called shit luck, and people will get duck boats and parades because they said they were on the right side. The only way you cover that damn run line is a walk-off 2-run homer, a 3-run homer, or a grand slam.
That's it.
Period. End of discussion. Okay? So when you brought up Minnesota, okay, good offense, they guaranteed 27 outs, okay? And their back end and their bullpen sucks. So that would equate to why they were plus 20-something games on the over on the road.
Yeah, that's it. Was it's just interesting to look at some of the data and some of the stuff. It's like the Rays. The Rays 38 unders or 38 overs, 39 unders at home, but 45 overs and 31 unders on the road.
Makes sense because decent starting pitching, even when they lost Jeets, okay, strong middle, strong back end, and they're getting 27 outs. So a good offense that got better as the year progressed. Franco finally heated up. Add that, bridge and add that back end. That equates perfectly.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. I trying to figure out if it's really in any way to make it a cut and dried thing, looking at what a team did or not did, or if it's a pitching stat, or if it's not, or if it's a waste of my time to even go through the exercise. But so that's just one of the things that's on my 27 things to kind of look at. So I don't know if anybody else needs anything or wants to talk about stuff, but it just gets your head thinking about things and get you in the right frame of mind because it's coming.
No, and I think that's a beautiful thing that you're talking about here because of the fact this. If you're strong at the back end, I'm sorry, let's go backwards. If you're strong in starting pitching, but weak in the bridge and weak in the back end, but you have a strong offense. I mean, so okay, I'm best to play this team when I get my 1-2 strong aces first 5. I'm good to play this team on the road, team total over, because they're getting the guaranteed 27 outs. I know to take the over on this team on the road because they got no back end. They're 3, 4, 5 pitchers are spotty at best, and they're still going to get the guaranteed 27 outs.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it's what you do with the data that makes it worthy of being able to do it or not. So that's kind of where I'm coming from is this an exercise that's worth doing or if it's not? Like one of the things that I'm going to do this year that I think I've done it in the past, but I've done it a different way is I've put up first 5 numbers in the book. But I think I want to put up first 5 numbers versus full game numbers and see what that looks like in a sense of, all right, well, if your first 5s, you're winning, but full games you're losing. Those are things that you can capitalize on in different ways. So I think the metrics and how you analyze these things and what you can get into are pretty neat. So anyway, I just throwing a couple things at you, Jeff, that I've been working on. So. That Teoscar Hernandez thing just blew me away.
Yeah, the Blue Jays are going to be such an interesting team. I mean, again, we talk about Bull, we talk about Vlad. No one talks about Teoscar. Be interesting to see a full season with Berrios, and they have a couple other pitchers if they make that next stride. Does Toronto go out and spend any more money on a frontline starter? Who's the closer? But offensively, there's no better team in the East. Listen, they blow doors over the Yankees offense, so don't even all you Yankee fans, I apologize. It's not even close. Okay. And then, for the Red Sox, it's another year. JD opts in. I wish he didn't, because I would be, if I'm a Red Sox fan with the universal DH, and I'll close with this. You have the universal DH. JD only opted in because he didn't think anyone else was going to pay him over $20 million, and he didn't know if the universal DH would have got accepted in the NL. I would be trading JD Martinez to the National League. I would get back whatever I could, and I would have Castellanos signed, sealed, and delivered and move to Boston. Unless, obviously, I could get Freddie Freeman, but he's going to stay in Atlanta, we assume. But the fact is, I think Castellanos would be a perfect addition. JD, thanks, but it's time to move on. I don't know what your thoughts are on Castellanos, but I think he'd be a perfect Red Sox.
No, I have mixed feelings about Castellanos. I think he'd be a great American League player, and I think that he can be a defender. He's just not a great one, but he would make a great DH somewhere, or a flex DH type player. I like Castellanos, and I think that Castellanos has a lot of value that people don't see. So one of the things I was looking at was weighted runs created plus, and he and Joey Votto both jumped up on that list compared to the offensive war list, so to speak. So I thought that was interesting, and I'll tell you this: I think one of the misnomers of all of the baseball is the RBI guys. They don't get enough credit for who they are and what they do. Salvador Perez led the league in RBIs last year, and the first baseman Abreu for the White Sox was second, and he didn't have a great year, but all he does is drive in runs. And if you're the, I don't know, let's just say you're those Miami Marlins, wouldn't you love to have a guy like Jose Abreu who can drive in damn runs? Get the guys on base and drive them in, for God's sakes. The data today in the game is all about how many guys can you get on base, because you're going to score them. Well, you're only going to score them if you get the guys that drive them in. When I looked at that and I looked at the RBI guys, there's I think a list in it, and let me pull it up because I got it right here. The list of RBI guys that I thought was interesting is of all the Major League Baseball hitters, and there's, I don't know, 600 of them or something, probably something like that. 20 had 100 RBIs last year, 20. I thought it was interesting too that the Toronto Blue Jays had 4 guys that were in that mix that had 100 RBIs. So think about that. You got 4 guys that can drive into runs. Of course, Marcus Semien was one of them, and he's not there anymore. So that's a big loss for them.
And not to interject, but you talked so much about Teoscar Hernandez and his numbers that were hidden. And that's all that ESPN, MLB, and everyone else talked about was Bo and Vlad. Mm-hmm. If you asked me, Semien was their MVP last year.
Yeah, no question. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez, you don't have to go very far to find him on the RBI list. He's number 3 in all of baseball, Jeff. Number 3. He had 116 RBIs. Are you kidding me? And nobody even knows his name. 116 RBIs. It was amazing to me to see some of the I call it plain out flat disrespect for these guys that drive in the runs, because it's vitally important that these guys do those things. But one last thing, I know we're wrapping this up, but everybody wants to talk about Freddie Freeman, and I get it. Freddie Freeman. But do you realize Freddie Freeman didn't have as many RBIs as say Ozzie Albies, for God's sakes, or he didn't have as many RBIs as Adam Duvall. He didn't have as many RBIs as Austin Riley. He didn't have as many RBIs as Dansby Swanson, for God's sakes. So tell me that Atlanta Braves team's not any good.
On a small board, we talked for almost an hour. I could eat, sleep, drink, poop baseball. It is just such a fascinating sport. We had Philip Dunaway reach out to us yesterday, and And then he reached back to me via text, and he was talking. He goes, "How about baseball?" And I was like, "Oh my God." He says, "If there's a season." I said, "No, there'll be a season." And guys, if you're not a baseball investor, wagerer, because you don't like to watch the sport or it's boring or whatever, God, the less you know, the better off you're going to be long term, first of all. Second of all, it's just such a beautiful sport. It's an amazing sport. There's so many pieces. You talk about an NBA game, which is five guys on the court, and you got two alphas, and the rest are just role players. And which alpha is going to score 35 tonight? Which guy's going to make Sports Center for a dunk, or yada, yada, yada. Baseball is just, oh my God, it's 9 innings. Every inning is an actual ball game. When you get to the playoffs, every pitch, you're on the edge of your seat. You get a leadoff walk in a playoff game in the first inning, and it's like, oh my God, this guy's going to score. And that's it. There's nothing better. I know playoff hockey is real fun to watch. Don't get me wrong. That's fun to watch. Okay, but baseball is just a whole nother sport, a whole nother breed. You can make a ton of money, but you got to be dog shopping. You can take some favorites, okay, but you can't be going to the window betting 3 minus 150s, invested 450 on your bankroll to win $300. Okay, because if you go 0-3, you lose 450. If you go 1-2, you lose $200. Okay, 2-1, you net $50. Okay, but that's for a whole nother day. Myself and Scott back at 4:30 for the closing bell. 2 o'clock. Riley Magnuson, live from the Windy City. We'll be talking college hoops, Big Ten, and more. Everyone else, we want everyone to enjoy your lunch. It's coming up to the noon hour. If your notifications aren't turned on, please turn them on so you never miss a show. And lastly, if you can jump on over to YouTube, East Coast Sports Investors, subscribe, smash the like button, the same as in Twitch. For myself, Jeff Dawson, EDC Sports Invest, Scotty Webber, Webby20 MLB. We wish you a blessed morning and afternoon. And always remember this: when you are investing in wagering, always wager responsibly. If you have a problem, pick up that phone. There's an 800 number available. Ask for help. Why? Myself and Scotty care. We want to see you here today, tomorrow, next week, next month, through 2022 and beyond. Have a great morning, rest of afternoon, and we will see you later today.